Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today, we're zooming in on Nuscale Power Core, a company really pushing the boundaries in advanced nuclear technology. You've gathered quite a bit of info on them.
Yes, we have. We've got analysis from May 2025 looking at, the company basics, recent performance, financials, strengths, weaknesses, market view, competition, and what's next.
Okay.
And there's also a detailed due diligence report from about the same time, getting into the nitty-gritty of metrics, business factors, management, valuation, peer comparisons.
Right.
And finally, a more recent update on their first quarter 2025 earnings and strategic progress.
So consider this your shortcut to understanding the important stuff about Nuscale right now. We'll cut through the jargon, focus on what matters for you. Okay, let's get started. Nuscale, it's all about small modular reactor tech, SMRs. What's the core idea?
Right. So their main product is the Nuscale power module. It's a 77 megawatt electric pressurized water reactor. But the key thing is, instead of one giant reactor, a power plant can have, say, up to a dozen of these modules. So you can get up to 924 megawatts electric, all carbon-free energy.
12 modules. 924 megawatts. Wow. So that modular approach, that's the big innovation.
That's a huge part of it, yes. It offers real adaptability.
It sounds almost like building blocks. You can add more power as you need it.
That's a good way to think about it. You can scale up, start smaller, add capacity later. That seems like a pretty clever design.
And where could this tech actually be used? What are the applications?
Oh, quite a few potential uses. Providing baseload power for the grid, that's fundamental. Replacing older coal plants, obviously a big environmental plus.
Right.
Supplying heat for industrial processes, that's another angle. And even powering things like, big data centers or desalination plants, which need a lot of steady energy.
Okay, so very flexible. Now, Nuscale isn't brand new, right? They've been working on this for some time.
That's right. Founded back in 2002. A really big step was in 2020 when they got their design approval from the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
That sounds crucial.
It absolutely is. Then they went public in 2022. And yeah, that scalability, being able to add modules, that's really interesting for utilities looking for a more phased investment.
That NRC approval, I imagine that took a lot of work. Let's shift to what they've been up to more recently. What's the latest progress?
Well, they're moving ahead with manufacturing. Reports say 12 modules are actually in production now.
Okay, so tangible progress there.
Yes. And they're working on a phase 2 engineering and design study that's for the RoPower project in Doiseitti. And importantly, the NRC is expected to approve an upgraded design, a more powerful version, by July 2025.
Upgraded, so more power from each module.
That's the plan, yes.
Yeah.
Looking further out, the target for the first commercial deployment is still around 2030.
Around 2030. That brings up a point for you, the listener. How does that kind of timeline compare to other energy projects you might be looking at? Something to weigh.
Definitely.
Okay, let's look at the money side. How's their financial health?
Well, Q1 2025 revenue was $13.4 million. Now compare that to Q1 2024. It was just $1.38 million. So that's a huge jump, about 870%.
Whoa, okay. That's significant.
It is. And the full year 2025 revenue estimates have also climbed, now close to $67 million.
What about the bottom line? Profitability.
Still operating at a loss, which isn't unexpected at this stage, but it's improving. Q1 2025 earnings per share, EPS, was minus 13 cents, better than the minus 21 cents a year earlier.
So moving in the right direction.
Seems so. And analysts have bumped up their earnings estimates for both 2025 and 2026. Also, very importantly, they have a strong cash position. Around $491 million in cash and equivalents, plus another $30 million in short-term investments.
It's so solid liquidity, they have runway.
Looks like it. And what's really interesting here is this dramatic revenue growth, even though they aren't, generating power commercially yet.
Right, so this revenue must be coming from engineering work, partnerships, design fees.
That kind of thing, yes. Which leads us nicely into their strengths. What advantages do they have?
Yeah, what sets them apart?
Well, number one is probably that first mover advantage. They have the only SMR design actually approved by the NRC right now. That's huge.
A big regulatory hurdle cleared that others haven't.
Exactly. They've also built strong partnerships. Entry One Energy for commercialization, Fluor for manufacturing support. These are key players.
Those kinds of partnerships must be vital for actually getting these things built and operating.
Absolutely crucial. Nuscale also says they're in advanced talks with potential customers in different sectors. They seem to have a clear roadmap aiming for that 2030 deployment. And they're innovating, too, looking into using their tech for hydrogen production, potentially. So Thinking bigger picture, that NRC approval really does act as a significant barrier to entry for competitors.
Okay, that first mover status with the regulator seems like a really powerful asset. But we need balance. What about the downsides? The red flags or risks?
Sure, a key one is simply the timeline. Significant revenue from actual deployed reactors isn't expected until around 2030. That's a long wait.
Patience is needed.
Definitely. There's also regulatory risk. What if that upgraded design approval from the NRC gets delayed beyond July 2025? That could slow things down.
Okay.
And it's capital intensive. Building nuclear anything costs a lot of money, so they'll need continued funding until they're commercially operational.
Makes sense.
And finally, competition. There are other advanced nuclear companies out there, like TerraPower, Rolls-Royce SMRs. Plus, you always have the competition from renewables, which are also advancing quickly. You just have to accept these long development horizons with nuclear projects.
Right, those long timelines are just part of the deal in this sector.
So given those risks and strengths, what's the general feeling out there? What's the market sentiment?
Lately, it seems quite positive. Recent news really emphasizes Nuscale's leadership position in SMRs and their regulatory progress.
Okay.
Analyst comments after the Q1 earnings were pretty upbeat too, especially about their supply chain getting ready and the customer interest they're seeing.
Any specific analyst actions? Yes, BTI analyst, for instance, recently raised their price target for Nuscale. So this positive feeling seems tied to tangible progress, not just hype.
Good to hear. It suggests the market is seeing real steps forward. Now, you mentioned competitors like TerraPower and Rolls-Royce. How does Nuscale really stack up against them?
Well, as we said, the key differentiator right now is that NRC approval. Nuscale got there first. They're also actively scaling up manufacturing already.
So they're further along the path to actual deployment.
It appears so. While competitors certainly have strong backing and interesting tech, Nuscale's regulatory lead gives them a significant edge, at least for now, even against well-funded rivals still navigating that licensing process.
That early approval really does seem like a crown jewel at the moment. Looking forward then, what are the key things we should be watching? The catalysts.
Okay, near term, definitely watch for that NRC standard design approval for the upgraded module. That's expected by July 2025. That's a big one.
Right, critical milestone.
Continued progress on that RoPower feed study in Romania is another, and of course, just generally tracking their progress towards that first commercial deployment around 2030.
Any hints about new deals?
Management has suggested they hope to announce potential new customer contracts by the end of 2025. That would be very significant. Also, keep an eye out for potential deals with utilities looking to replace old coal plants.
Lots to watch for then. Okay, let's try and pull this all together. Based on everything we've discussed, what's the takeaway? A summarized recommendation.
Well, based on this analysis, something like a hold or maybe a moderate buy seems appropriate. Nuscale is definitely a leader in a high-potential market. Their tech is validated by the NRC. That's all positive. But they are still pre-commercial. There are execution risks involved in rolling out any new complex technology like this. So a measured approach seems warranted. It probably suits investors who are looking for a long-term exposure to nuclear innovation and crucially, can tolerate that longer development timeline.
So, wrapping up for you, the listener, what does this all mean? Nuscale seems to be making real headway in a critical clean energy space. That strong revenue growth, the regulatory wins, the talk of customer orders, it points towards a company moving from R&D towards actually selling its product.
Absolutely. But it's really important to remember this is a long-term play. There are always uncertainties when bringing advanced nuclear tech to market. So keep a close eye on those NRC decisions and any news about customer contracts. Those will be really key signals about their future trajectory.
And if you want to dig even deeper, you can always check out Nuscale's SEC filings for the fine print on financials and just generally keep up with industry news on the SMR market. What really stands out to you as the most important factor for Nuscale right now?
For me, it's that combination of regulatory success, getting that initial approval, and the concrete steps they're taking now. You know, the manufacturing scale-up, the customer talks. It suggests they're moving past just being a promising idea towards actual real-world deployment.
Makes sense. If you found this analysis useful, please do subscribe, like, and comment. It genuinely helps us bring you more of these explorations. And now, a final thought to chew on. How might the widespread adoption of SMR technology like Nuscale's fundamentally change the global energy map in the coming decades?